Accusations of abuse and tampering with a corpse. What happened to Mother God?
It's a bizarre and disturbing update about the controversial leader of a group many characterized as a cult. Mother God, as she called herself, was found dead in their Colorado headquarters, her body decomposing. Police suspected it had been kept for weeks by her devoted followers. When the Saguache County Sheriff's Office arrived, they discovered her corpse wrapped in a sleeping bag and covered in Christmas lights, with glitter makeup allegedly encircling her empty eye sockets. Her Love Has Won followers are calling her death an ascension.
The leader of a cult was found dead and mummified in a sleeping bag.
Amy Leah Carlson was the leader of a cult called Love Has Won. Carlson proclaimed to have been reincarnated countless times.
It was at this home the mummified body was found.
Carlson's body was tied with Christmas lights, her eyes were missing, and glitter makeup was painted on her face.
The sheriff's office searched the home where they found a 2-year-old boy, a 13-year-old girl, and the dead body. Authorities say they were tipped off by the 2-year-old boy's father, who said the group was keeping his son hostage.
A neighbor says they had been complaining about the cult's presence.
We've been trying to get this place shut down as a public nuisance, and we're ignored. These are some very scary people.
Carlson set up the cult in 2018 after leaving her third marriage and a job at McDonald's.
When I joined the team, she told me I was going to be, the father god to her mother god.
Investigator Rick Sounder talked face-to-face with two members who have now been released from jail.
Brian Kramer and Karen Raymond left free on personal recognizance bonds.
God is a woman.
And that's Amy?
That's correct. God is a woman, and this whole planet will know.
She'd been ill for some time. In YouTube videos, Kramer earlier talked about Carlson's illness.
Why can't she heal herself? She's God. Well, that's a great question.
How did she die?
I actually do not have an answer to that. Sincerely, I don't know.
Is she going to be reincarnated?
You tell me.
God is a woman.
At this point, it is not clear that love has won.
7 followers have been charged with abuse of the corpse. Those same people are also facing charges of child abuse in connection with the 2 children who were also inside the house at the time. We launched our season with a 2-part investigation of Mother God's organization and have the last known interview with the controversial leader.
Hi. Love you, Dr. Phil.
So how are things?
They're very peaceful here at the moment.
So things are often not peaceful around you, because I've seen some of your streams, I've seen some of the videos where you seem to be upset a lot.
My own light workers battled me!
Yelling and screaming and calling names and all.
You whores!
What is it that upsets you the most?
Where the upset comes from me is as I serve love every day, and I am in love in action every moment. That is my role. I've been like that since I was born, serving love. And a lot of the anger things, I suppose, if you call them that, or is it passion?
Spiritual ego whores, done! If you're not connected to me, you're out.
That seems pretty aggressive for someone that's leading the world to love.
I agree with you. It was taken in a moment where a lot of things were happening to me, and I was upset.
At the time, her family members had come to me concerned about the woman they knew as Amy Carlson. They say she had abandoned her children 15 years ago and formed Love Has Won. Linda, is there anything you want to say to her?
Amy, I love you, you know that, and I miss you, and I don't like what you're doing at all to these poor people. You weren't raised like this, and it makes me so sad.
She believes she is God. She is, over everyone, over the world. We're all her children in her eyes.
Amy Carlson told her followers that she could communicate with angels, was capable of curing ailments like cancer, and claimed to be in her 534th reincarnation, and that her past lives included Jesus Christ and Marilyn Monroe.
I have reincarnated many, many moments. I was Marilyn Monroe, Joan of Arc, Jesus. Humanity's gonna trip about that because they always thought Jesus was a masculine. I have full memory of all my lives. I fully remember being hanged on the cross as Jesus. We're not a cult. Absolutely not. What is a cult? A cult, is not transparent, point blank. I'm transparent.
Some of the other accusations were that you use sleep deprivation as a way to control people.
I'm sorry.
Son, are you going to wake up and serve God, or are you going to go to sleep?
Yes.
Yes, what?
God.
Really? When? When you choose?
Today, as soon as I'm
Sometime
up.
today?
As soon as I'm up, yes.
Okay. Well, when are you going to get up? Because everyone's up. We never went to sleep. Why are you sleeping?
Amy, do you use sleep deprivation and mental manipulation?
Absolutely, that is incorrect. A lot of beings are not utilizing their sleep properly. So I just set up boundaries so that everyone knew that, and they all take naps.
We're joined now virtually by Rick Allen Ross, the CEO of Cult Education Institute and the author of Cults, Inside Out, for his take on the group Love Has Won and the shocking news of the circumstances surrounding the death of their leader called Mother God. You predicted this would happen and happen sooner than later, correct?
Yeah, when we did the show, Dr. Phil, she claimed she was suffering from cancer, and we also knew that she had very serious problems with substance abuse. So this doesn't come as a surprise. She looked very frail and ill when we talked to her on the show, and she looked like she was nearing the end of her life.
She apparently, and I don't know that this contributed or not, but I know that there was a lot of controversy about something called colloidal silver, which she claimed would protect people from COVID. And I just have to wonder if she was self-medicating with this colloidal silver concoction and maybe poisoned herself inadvertently. We don't know.
Now, the cause of death has yet to be determined, but authorities believe it occurred in March and may have been the result of ingesting silver, a product the cult had been selling as a cure for COVID-19.
It's very possible. She was hawking that as a cure for COVID while the group was streaming online. That was something that she was doing most recently.
Now, her followers are not treating this as a death from what I'm reading in the media. And in fairness, I've not had the opportunity to actually interview any of them. I was very surprised that she was willing to sit for the interview that she did. Was that a surprise to you?
I thought it was a very interesting surprise. I mean, it's not often that we get a chance to talk to a cult leader and also her mother, her sister, other members of the group. It was an incredible experience.
I Skyped her about a month ago, and I told her I was extremely concerned about her. And she looked at me and laughed in my face and said she was Mother God, that I shouldn't be concerned about her.
And it was an opportunity for the audience to really get the feel of what it's like to be inside a destructive cult firsthand.
I did believe that she was God while I was there. You wake up at 5, no exceptions, every day. You're not supposed to sit. They claim that if you weren't in motion, that you were taking energy from Mother God. I feel this is a dangerous group to anybody's mental health.
You had said that this was one of the most dangerous religious groups that you've ever seen. Why do you categorize it that way?
You know, Dr. Phil, because it was such a tightly wound group. I mean, this is a group of only a few people, less than 100 certainly, and they were tightly wound around Amy Carlson, totally controlled by her hour by hour, day by day, and dependent on her judgment and reasoning to determine what to do, what reality is. And I think when you have a group of people that are that dependent upon an individual who I think we saw Amy Carlson as a very unstable, deeply disturbed individual who was very likely delusional. So you have all these people tied to someone like that. And I feared, like Marshall Applewhite, the leader of Heaven's Gate, the people who committed mass suicide in, 1997, that they would do whatever Amy told them to do. And she was near death. And many times when cult leaders are in a situation like that, they will encourage their members to follow them in death.
Yeah, exactly. It was interesting that her mother and sister, who were part of that broadcast, were there not with the hope of saving her and getting her out of the mindset and the organization that she was leading, because they believed that she was way past saving. They were there to save others from coming under her influence, which I thought was interesting as well.
Yeah, and her son has come forward since her death and talked about his feelings about his mother.
I am Amy's oldest child. My mom was a cult leader. Some of the details that have slowly continued to come out have been rather shocking to me, honestly. They're also they're a cult. You kind of expect weird things to come out. Mummified and eye makeup but no eyes. Just disturbing. The whole thing is just so disturbing.
And I remember on the show, her mother and her sister talking about how she had abandoned her own children in favor of pursuing her career as a cult leader.
Amy is not who I raised.
Were you surprised when she abandoned her 3 children?
Yes, I was.
That was not something you expected her to do.
No, I didn't.
Was she close to her children?
No, not really. She wasn't a very maternal mother.
And Tara, what do Amy's children think of her now?
I most recently spoke with her oldest son, and he said she's crazy. He knew it would come to a point at one time where she would just need help. He doesn't reach out to her or anything.
And how about the other children?
I don't think the other children talk to her.
You have 3 children, correct?
Yes, I do.
And you left those children when they were 2, 7, and 12, but yet you call yourself Mother God. How do you explain abandoning your children?
Amy Leah Carlson was the leader of a cult called Love Has Won. Carlson called herself Mother God and proclaimed to have been reincarnated countless times.
Foul play is not suspected in their leader's death. She was said to be a heavy drinker and also a drug user. You may have seen her on the Dr. Phil show.
Now, you have 3 children, correct?
Yes, I do.
And you left those children when they were 2, 7, and 12, and just up and left them, but yet you call yourself Mother God. How do you explain abandoning your children?
For me, I did not abandon my children. I begged my angels I didn't want to leave. And they told me I had to go on mission. If I didn't do it, then no one else would. And I had to make a jump, and I had to make a decision.
So just a higher calling.
Yes, absolutely.
A higher calling.
I gave over all the papers to their fathers and said, thank you for taking care of our children. I appreciate it. And I left on mission. Did my heart break every day for about a year? Yes.
So she came across to me as deeply narcissistic, completely self-obsessed, little, if any, empathy or sympathy for anyone. And what we saw from videos and accounts of her behavior is that she was horribly abusive to her followers and to children that were in the group. And of course, there were two minor children who were rescued by Child Protective Services that were with the group and the dead body when the police raided the group's building.
You know, I thought it was interesting that we had the opportunity to actually see some video shot inside their dwelling. And you remember that a young child that wasn't complying with her commands, she banished to a closet, a dark closet where this child was imprisoned, essentially, shut up in this closet, which I thought was horrifically abusive.
Time out.
You got the timer, 2 minutes?
Yeah, I got it.
I'm sorry, I need you to help me with that.
What was happening in that group dynamic is that these children came to see me, and in their environment, they were very dysfunctional. They hadn't been disciplined, and I feel that's, the majority of humanity hasn't had discipline, and children have to have boundaries.
But the fact that I'm looking at 5 or 6 or 7 adults in the room, and not one person in the room has the backbone to stand up and say, this is not okay. You're not going to bully and abuse this child and traumatize them by putting them in a closet with a closed door like this.
What we were doing is experimenting. They weren't locked in a closet. They were put in timeout, Dr. Phil.
In a closet?
Yeah.
With a closed door?
Well, they were in dark so that they could focus and center on themselves. And we put an adult there with them.
There was an adult in the closet?
Of course.
I don't believe that. Of course, having never sat with her and completed a diagnostic process with her, I can't render a diagnosis.
Hey, stop it. Stop being a bitch.
She was arguing with a cat and disciplining a cat, for God's sakes.
You wanna run? Oh yeah, that's the greatest thing that I can do is I can run. You're stupid.
I can tell you on my short list of considerations would be that of malignant narcissist. And for people at home, there are different types of narcissism. There's kind of the general narcissist that's got all the grandiose sort of entitlement, lack of empathy, etc. And then there's the malignant narcissist, and they have all of the traits of the general narcissist, but they're mean, they're vicious, they hurt people on purpose, and they get pleasure from doing so and think they're entitled to do so. And it was that kind of behavior that really worried me about this Amy Carlson that considered herself Mother God.
Turning our attention now to the arrest of 7 members of the Love Has Won cult after authorities discovered the mummified corpse of its leader, Amy Carlson, who was known to her followers as Mother God.
Investigator Rick Sounder talked face-to-face with 2 members who have now been released from jail.
Is she going to be reincarnated?
You tell me.
God is a woman. That's the divine truth.
But I want to make sure I understand. God is a woman, and Amy is the God?
Yes.
She's been reincarnated many, many times.
534.
Yeah.
This is her 534 life.
Yeah. So maybe she'll come back to life.
Maybe she'll come off a starship.
In the coverage of following these followers since her death, they continue to be completely obsessed with her. And even though her death doesn't really fit the narrative of what she said her mission on Earth was, they're desperately spinning it to just basically make themselves feel that everything's okay, that this is just what she had planned. And in that sense, they're continuing to be devoted members.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, because what we saw on some of the tapes, that it's so unusual to get an opportunity to witness some of this, but we saw her intoxicated or under the influence of drugs and yelling and screaming at some of the people.
My vision was chicken parmesan. So the Adams turn around on me and get me meatballs. I didn't say meatballs. I love meatballs, but I didn't say that. Chicken parmesan. I get up every moment by you whores. My Adams. I just needed a tequila. It takes 5 rounds of whores to get me a tequila. Are you kidding me?
That behavior is absolutely exploitive, it's narcissistic, it's abusive,
you're taking things out of context, and there's not a lot I can do except my life's work that is a representation. Unfortunately, do I get upset about things? Yeah, because I get really frustrated right now. I'm in a lot of pain, and I easily get frustrated. I can't walk. I can't go to the bathroom. I can't take a shower by myself. Someone has to put me in the shower and take me out. And I'm in a very frustrating situation with that.
She said she couldn't walk, her legs were paralyzed, yelling and screaming for people to wait on her hand and foot. And you talked about her followers. They were so tightly wound, they were so involved in her, and they're now telling themselves that she's ascended, not that she's died, but they had her wrapped up in a sleeping bag with Christmas lights. Once it hits them that she's gone and she doesn't come back, those that were the most brainwashed, like the two young women that we talked to that were just would not hear anything other than she is Mother God. What do you see happen with those people when all of this leadership, this thought control is taken away? What do you see happen with those people after the fact?
I found Mother God in fall of 2019.
I can say that there is no doubt that Mom is God.
Mom is the way, and we would not be here for any other reason than Mom.
She is the real, whole, pure truth.
And it is an honor to be a part of this mission and helping her raise the consciousness of humanity.
You talked about her followers. They were so tightly wound, they were so involved in her, and they're now telling themselves that she's ascended. What do you see happen with those people when all of this leadership, this thought control is taken away? What do you see happen with those people after the fact?
I think the group is going to fade away, because what we saw in her death is the obsession with Amy Carlson as an object of worship, as the defining element and driving force of Love Has Won, this cult that we examined. And so without her to keep the group together as the hub of the wheel of the group, it's just going to collapse, which is what happens with these personality-driven cults.
What I actually share with everybody is not to surrender to me. I've never said that, to surrender to me. I just say surrender to love and yourself. And whatever your soul and your heart shares with you to do, that's what you do.
But you tell them you're God. You're actually God. You hung on the cross. You recall being crucified on the cross, and that you are God.
In truth, we are all God.
That's not what you say. You don't say you're all God. You say, I am Mother God.
I am Mother God, but we are all God.
She had them believing that she was a divine being trying to save humanity for 19 billion years. That's a pretty lofty perch to wind up with Christmas lights wrapped around your corpse. And like these two young women, absent her and in a leadership vacuum, they're going to be completely lost.
I have spent almost 3 years by her side, and she is absolutely amazing. I would not be the person, the feminine that you see on the live stream every day in front of thousands of people if it wasn't for what she has done. She is my best friend. She is a companion. She has shown me so many beautiful aspects of this planet.
I worry what's going to happen with them when it hits them and they're just sitting there like, what do we do now? What happens to them?
Well, I think at this point, Dr. Phil, it's crucial that the families maintain communication with them and to express love, support unconditionally to the person that is in the group, because that way They feel no shame, no humiliation in coming back home. But without the family as a safety net, they'll simply migrate from one cult to another cult. And there are even cults that deliberately will recruit former members from a group that's falling apart. That happened with a guru by the name of Bhagwan Sri Rajneesh. He was deported from the United States in the 80s, leaving thousands of followers disenfranchised with no leader. And there were other groups that simply cannibalized the Rajneeshi group in Oregon.
But if the family does what you're saying, which is you are unconditionally welcomed here, we love you, we're your soft place to fall, and if you need help reintegrating into society, we'll get you that help. These people need to know that they have a face-saving way to reconnect with those that love them that they left behind. You just need to have an open door and an open heart.
I am God. I am Mother Gaia, Mother Earth, Great Spirit, Spider Woman, White Buffalo Calf Woman. And I produce miracles. Kind of like Jesus. I've done over 100,000 surgeries. I healed people of cancer over and over with the power of love.
I want this to be a cautionary tale for all families, whether you have a family member that you think is involved with a dangerous group or a group that you consider dangerous. You always say, never give up. Keep going to that gate every weekend and standing there, because the leaders are telling them that nobody cares about them, nobody's looking for them, nobody wants them home, and that helps to control them.
What we're looking at when we look at the Amy Carlson group is a very extreme and destructive cult. And we really need to recognize that these groups are not all the same, that some are much more destructive than others. So for many families, they have the option of communication. But as you say, there are many of these groups that have total isolation. And when I talk to people who have left such a group, they will say, well, the reason that I felt that I could leave was I knew from my family trying to reach me so many times over the years, and them coming to look for me, I knew they still cared about me. I knew they still loved me. And so I knew I had somewhere to go.
You know, it was interesting. I interviewed Michelle Knight, who was one of the 3 girls held captive by Ariel Castro for the 11 years that they were held captive. And I interviewed her when she was rescued. And it was interesting that one of his primary tactics was telling those 3 young women, nobody's looking for you. And he would turn on the news after there had maybe been a piece on the news and say, see, look, there's no big news story. They're not looking for you. And it really got to those 3 girls that they had disappeared and nobody cared. That's such a profound tool to isolate your victim. And if you can just keep that door open and let them know, it makes such a difference. So I'm so glad that you talk about that.
And I think that's why we sometimes don't get it, that what we think is crazy about a destructive cult, and we look at it and we say, well, how could they believe that? How could they believe that she is God? We don't realize how isolated these people are, and that what we think is crazy, they think is perfectly normal. That also reminds me of all these polygamous children. They brought 400 of them out of a compound in Texas. And those kids had the hardest time dealing with just day-to-day life because they knew nothing but the leaders of their group and that lifestyle. And so we need to realize that we shouldn't judge people in a destructive cult and call them crazy without trying to understand the environment they live in and the pressures that they're under. These are people who were totally dominated morning, noon, and night by Amy Carlson. They knew nothing other than what she told them. I think they're safe in the jail where they can be watched. They're safer than they would be if they were outside of the jail, but I hope that they will get the help that they need.
This is morbid, but what is your take on the story that her eyes were allegedly removed from her corpse? What's your take on that. So Rick, I'm curious what your take is on the story that her eyes were allegedly removed from her corpse. And I don't want to gross people out here, but I'm talking about this from a psychological standpoint. Think about that process. This woman has died, and they have her corpse there at this place they're inhabiting in Colorado, and somehow they get around the corpse, and digging someone's eyeballs out is not an easy process. And they had to be really motivated, really committed to this process to do that. And there had to be some powerful psychological belief, purpose to do that.
You know, Dr. Phil, in 1995, there was a group called the Solar Temple, and they all died together with their leader, Luc Jouret. There were about 75 of them in Switzerland and France. And then after they died, there were a series of suicides from people who were left behind, that were members of the group that were not there in the mass suicide, but who killed themselves individually. In fact, when Heaven's Gate, when those people were found near San Diego, there were 39 of them that all died together with their leader, Marshall Applewhite. And there were people after the Heaven's Gate mass suicide that were people left behind who felt they should die, and at least attempted suicide, some that died, and felt guilty that they were left behind. And so I look at Amy Carlson's followers that now do not have Mother God to guide them, and I wonder if they are in danger.
I have been with Mom for 2.5 years, and I will tell you, she is the absolute brilliant, kindest, sweetest being. She has taken me from a highly dysfunctional place and made me highly as brilliant as she is.
I look at Amy Carlson's followers that now do not have Mother God to guide them, and I wonder if they are in danger, and I hope that they will get the help they need from their families and from people that the families can contact, who can help them to realize that their life is not over. And in fact, it really is just beginning again.
Well, I'll say this, if any members of Love Has Won, any family members that are in contact with members of that organization are watching this conversation right now, just know that Rick and I are here to offer guidance and support in any way that we can. So just know that without judgment, without condemnation, we are here to help. Use your life to help others, and we'll certainly pitch in and do what we can in that regard. So Rick, maybe we'll hear from someone. I certainly hope we do.
I hope so.
Rick, thank you so much for taking time to talk about this very important story, and I hope it's a cautionary tale for others other than just Love Has Won. We started covering this together, and I hope we can bring it to a happier end than Amy Carlson found. So thank you very much, Rick.
Thank you, Dr. Phil.